Hello chess people, how are you doing today? It's Banter Blitz with Miss Strategy, but before we start, I would like to know your opinion on the World Cup. Are you watching the World Cup? What do you think about it? Do you think that Magnus will win it? Will it be a tough fight? Will it be another player? Who's your favorite? And what do you think about the players that have been eliminated already? For example, Sergei Karyakin, that was such a shocking match. Let me know in the chat and also on YouTube in the comments below if you are following and who are your picks to win the World Cup in Tbilisi. And if you want to know more about the World Cup, I recommend that you go to Chess24's YouTube channel, and there's an awesome recap of the first matches by the one and only Sofiko Guremishvili. So if you want to know more about the World Cup, definitely tune into Sofiko's shows. She will recap every round. That is, one round is 2 matches and a tiebreak day. Every 3 days, she has a show on what happened in those games and who qualified for the next round. Definitely a must watch. If you are here, that's certainly because you want to challenge me. And in order to challenge me, you need to go to Chess24. Let me show you the website. Hi Olaf, hi Christian, hi Oliver. Let me see who else is here in the chat just real quick before I head to the website. Hi there, Henker, hi Easy Rider, hi Pramod, hi Epininkon, Arthur, hi everyone. I wish I could read out all those names, but I appreciate so much that you are here. I know you, I have seen your username so many times, so I really appreciate it. Now let's show everyone who is new, where can they join us? You need to go to the website of Chess24. So you might be watching on YouTube, but go to chess24.com if you want to challenge me and if you want to chat with everybody else. You see that the live event is here, Banter Blitz with Anna. I hope it can be seen on the screen. And there you go. This is the show. I always pause myself. Horrible thing there. This is the chat, so you can write us here. This is the chat I'm reading. I read the YouTube comments after the video is uploaded, not during the stream, so make sure that you chat here on Chess24. And to challenge me, you just need to hover over my name, Anna Rudolf, and click on challenge. 5-minute blitz game. Premium members always get priority. So let's see who is my first opponent today. Also, please let me know if everything is going fine sound-wise, visually. Any technical glitches, just let me know because I'm no IT genius. And you know that. So let me just see if everything is alright in the chat, if you can confirm that before we begin our first game. I will bring up the board because it's always good to have a chess board. Hi Jacko, hi everyone. Yeah, the whole gang is here. There, Henker is saying, I agree. Everyone is here and I'm so happy. Stream is well. Thank you for confirming it. Thank you, Johan. Thank you, Easy Rider. Let's see who will be the first lucky or unlucky opponent. I don't know. Depends on how is my shape today. Last week, I played very poor chess. I blundered in so many games last week. This week, I hope to do better. Certainly, it wasn't very helpful for me that I'm in the middle of moving. So, packing in and out and moving to a different house, but there are no excuses in chess. All the blame is on me if I play bad chess. It's because of me. E4 Smugs 2006. I welcome the challenge for another French defense. Last week I played a horrible game in the French defense with the black pieces. That was a typical game, very instructive on how not to play the French defense. Oh, the exchange variation. This is possibly the most boring variation in the French. If you want to spice things up, then you either need to castle queenside as black, or you should play with an isolated pawn and push c5. So you have those choices. If not, it's gonna be just a symmetrical position. And I don't like mirror positions. No, I don't want any very equalish position. So which one shall we go for? Shall we castle queenside or shall we play an isolated pawn position? Today, isolated pawn, I think. Not that I like isolated pawns. Oh, he wants to prevent c5, but you can't really prevent it. I mean, I will play it anyway. So I can take back that pawn in many ways. For instance, d takes, bishop takes is bad because after bishop takes c5, queen a5, there's b4. But if you take on c5, I'm not in a rush taking this pawn back. I can simply play knight d7 or just bishop e7 castle. And on the long run, I don't believe that this pawn can be kept. Also, I have d4 as an option many times with the knight on d2, not without the knight. With the knight on b1, he could have taken on d4 and bishop b5 check, winning the queen. And I'm explaining so many things that my clock is running really low. So, what did I do? I mean, okay. No, for a moment I was like, I thought I clicked on the wrong square and it was going to play knight a6. I meant knight c6. So, the point is, I want him to take, but since he didn't take, I will take the pawn. I like gifts. Give me the pawn. As Yasser would say, Yasser Sayarvan, one of my favorite commentators, gift me the pawn. I really like that. Yasser is great. So I have a pawn up. He's got some counterplay for sure for the pawn, but I will castle quickly and see who's gonna have problems on that open e-file. Well, I can move the bishop and that means that the queen will have to retreat to d1. I like that. I like that, even though it doesn't solve the issue with my pinned knight on f6. So first I will push h6, see where he places the bishop, and then I will move, probably. Or not. Do I want? Do I not want? Let's see. I can also play knight e4. Is that a good move? Knight e4, he'll take on e7, and then pin me on the e-file. I can play bishop f5. Let's try. I want to see what happens. The other option was moving the bishop, but I didn't like that after moving the bishop, queen d1. I mean, that's a nice position for black for sure, but that knight would have been pinned forever on f6. And I don't like to be pinned. I don't like to be pinned. So, now I'm expecting him to take on e7. I will take back with the queen. That move protects the e4 knight. I overprotect it just in case. And we shall see what he's gonna do about my knight on e4. Of course, you shouldn't take it because that will straighten my pawn structure. And if you take with a knight, that's a fork. I'm talking about the position after bishop takes e7, queen takes. Not right now, because if you take right now, I will take on h4 first, and you are pinned on the e-file, so I'm gonna win a piece. Let me know in the chat if this is too much to follow, because I cannot move the pieces during a game, but I will show you this in the analysis after the game. So I might be saying too many variations. Let me know if it's too much at once. Now this I think is bad, because I will take on h4. Okay, he's got a trick. He wants to take here. He wants me to take on h4 with the queen, and then he has bishop h7 check. But even in that case, I can play king f8. So the point is that the rook would be hanging on e8. But I think this is just bad. I need to see which way I want to exploit it. But I think the easiest is it? I mean, it's very easy to just take here, even if it doesn't win a piece. I take here, I straighten my pawn structure. This is hanging. Now, this is a very bad piece. It's gonna be trapped unless you play g3. So if you have to play g3, I will take yet another pawn, 2 pawns up, and a beautiful control of the center. This is just a very nice position. And probably I had even something better than this. Queen takes h4, bishop h7 check, king f8, and then maybe this bishop would have been trapped if the queen moves, and g6. Why? What? Okay, same trick. Okay, I'm falling for the same trick, and this time it works. I will not fall into my own trap. I was telling you that he wants me to take on h4, and now with the knight, check on f6. And this is stronger than bishop h7, so I actually tricked myself. But I see a move that I like, and that is bishop takes h3. If he takes, then I can take on h4, thanks to bishop takes h3 and sacrificing temporarily a piece, but this is connecting the two rooks, so I can take on h4. He realized it, but I think this is bad anyway. I mean, I'm gonna take this knight. I just need to play much faster. Today I'm explaining too much, maybe? Oh, but Smugs resigned. Well, thank you for the game. I think it was really exciting. But now I will show on the board all the variations that I was mentioning. e4. French defense, exchange variation. By the way, thank you for the game Smugs 2006. It was really exciting. And now I want to show everyone the critical points. As I was mentioning, the French defense, exchange variation. Well, this is the most solid approach. If you play this with white, it's only not that solid if white wants to play with c4. So if white will play for an isolated pawn structure. Now this is not that solid, but everything else is kind of a mirror position. You can reach positions like this when it's really, really, really symmetrical. I don't like this because I think this is too boring. I like chess when it's fun to play and when there's something different between the two camps so that you have something to play for with both colors. So the way to play for something against the exchange French is either to castle queenside or to play with an isolated pawn, what I did in the game. How do you castle queenside? Well, you can play bishop d6, and if knight f3, you can go either knight e7 or knight c6, and your plan, now this is not a move by move what I'm showing, but the plan is that you will move this bishop g4 or bishop e6. You will place the queen on d7 and castle queenside. And then it's an opposite side castling position, and that is exciting. So both players will be launching pawn storms against the opponent's king. I have covered opposite side castling in many middle game shows, so if you want to know more about those topics, head to YouTube, Chess24's channel and Miss Strategy's middle game show. I covered so many middle game topics, including opposite side castling. Another topic that I cover in those shows, and I plug my own show in my Banter Blitz, is the isolated pawn structure. So here, black, if you don't want to castle opposite side, what you can do is to push c5. So knight f6, if knight f3, you will play c5. And your idea is that you will just want to play an isolated pawn position, knight c6. At some point, white will take on c5, you will take that pawn back, castle, and that is just a typical isolated pawn structure from black's perspective. Now, of course, it's not as aggressive as if you played it with white, but there's still plenty of play in that position. So if you enjoy playing isolated pawn structures, this is the variation you should play in the exchange French. In the game, Smugs played bishop e3, but I don't like bishop e3, to be honest. It's not a big mistake, but the bishop is not doing much on e3. This bishop would be a lot better later on g5, as you did in the game, pinning the knight. So you lost the tempo by placing the knight on e3. c5, this is what I was aiming for, and if you take here, what I was saying is that I don't want to take back the pawn immediately. Bishop takes c5 is bad because you can take, and queen a5 doesn't win back the piece because of b4. I shouldn't do this, and I also shouldn't play d4. Maybe you were afraid of d takes c5, d4, but I cannot play this move because of this smart tactical motive. I'm losing the queen, and knight c6 doesn't help because a pinned piece doesn't protect anything. So after d takes c5, I was not going to react to this immediately. I'm not sure if I would have played either, but I have many options. Actually, I don't know which one is the best, but the options are bishop e7 and castle, very quick, and then I'm threatening d4. So this is a pawn sacrifice, but I don't think that it's a bad pawn sacrifice because I can also play knight d7 and force you play b4. If you play b4 now, there are already things happening like a5, you need to protect this. It's a pawn up, but for some play. Maybe it's not the best pawn sacrifice, but I think in a practical game it makes sense. And of course the other option is giving this check, see what you do. You should play queen d2, I believe, if you don't want to give back the pawn, or c3, that's also a possibility. So there are many other options, but I think the critical option is always accepting the sacrifice. You should calculate, but when the opponent sacrifices you something and you don't see a refutation, you capture it, you calculate what happens if you capture, and if you don't see the refutation, then capture the sacrificed material, because that is really the test of this pawn sacrifice or piece sacrifice in other games. If you don't see the refutation, go for it, because maybe there isn't a refutation. I can play a5 to prevent b4 and then attack the pawn, but this is just completely fine for white, I believe. So this is a kind of a gamble move, c5. And it worked because you were afraid that I really had something. I didn't have anything. Knight c6, now it's problematic because you cannot take any more. I have d4 already. There's no capture on d4 and I will take back this pawn. Very comfortable position. I have more space and I will have very nicely developed pieces. So after knight c6, I think black is just fine, but you shouldn't still sacrifice this pawn. You should protect it with c3. And now we just play a normal position. I can either take on d4 or c4. I probably would have played c4 and we would have reached a position where after developing our pieces we both castle, and here black can play for a queen side pawn push, b4, a5, b4, while white will try to do something on the king side like knight e5, bring the other knight to f3. You see that your bishops are pointing at my king, especially the c2 bishop, so it's really some position where you want to try to do something on the king side and also control the center by playing knight e5. So this would have been, I think, the best. After h3, I believe that I'm doing fine because, I mean, it's more than fine. It's a pawn up. And it's not just that it's a pawn, it's a central pawn. You might think that doubled pawns are worthless, but both of my doubled pawns are in the center. You see how many squares these doubled pawns are controlling? Loads and loads and loads. That means that it is really a huge pawn up, and taking all these central squares is more than what actually the pawn is giving me. It gives me the control of the center, the entire center. Bishop g5, bishop e7, queen e2, but I think black is just doing very, very fine here. And after knight e4, I think this is the last critical moment because you should have taken on e7 first, I believe. After queen takes e7, I believe black is better because of the central control and pawn up. But this bishop is not that useful. So this is still something to play for. And you don't want to take on e4, you want me to take on d2. I probably wouldn't have taken, I can develop my pieces, but this is not a clear-cut, oh, I'm so much better position. It is a slightly better position for black. In the other line, I think tactics work for me because there's this pin on the e-file. So let's see the pin. Bishop takes h4. I was telling you that my opponent was aiming for this position. After queen takes h4, he's got this smart check, bishop h7. But actually, I don't think it's that smart. Because after king f8, now the queen is hanging still, and the bishop will be trapped on h7. So probably this is what I should have gone for. Depends on something concrete, like where shall you place the queen? Shall it go to b5 and threatening queen c5? Maybe. But then g6, this is what I was telling you, that this bishop will be trapped. Next move, king g7. So this isn't the way to play. Maybe queen f3, that prevents g6. Maybe this is okay. Maybe with queen f3 this is fine. I can't play this because of bishop takes g6. And if I can't do that, you will go back with the bishop. Maybe this is okay. What happened in the game was a different variation. I played bishop takes, and now knight takes, d takes e4. If you just protect this knight on h4 after bishop takes h3, it's 2 pawns up, huge control of center, very bad piece on h4. Black is winning. So this seemed like a good option because if I take on h4, knight f6 is a horribly strong move and white is winning. White is winning material. Maybe it's still not that bad for black because I have 2 pawns and a piece for the rook, but I certainly was winning before and not anymore. So this was actually a very tricky move. But luckily, I spotted the trick. Knight f6. Bishop takes h3, connects the rooks. Next move I can take on h4. So if g takes h3, queen takes h4, and white is in trouble, I have a pawn up. Both the e4 knight and the pawn on h3 are hanging. Weak king, and yeah, problems everywhere. The biggest problem is that I'm gonna win a piece probably because you need to defend this. If f3, f5, queen c4 check still, But this position, I mean, even if I don't win a piece, it looks just very bad for white. So that is how the game ended, basically after rook f e1, queen takes h4. Now, the same problem. If g takes h3, you can either just take on h3 or f5, queen c4, king h7, that position. But this should be just winning for black. Maybe the best is takes, and next move I want to play knight e5 and knight f3. That will be a beautiful mate. Now this was a very long analysis. Let me know in the chat if you like that I give that much insight into games, or you prefer that I just briefly go through it and then I can play more games. It's up to you. You are in control of my show, so let me know in the chat and also in the YouTube comments if you want this to be that instructive or you prefer less instructions and more games. I shall go for the next challenge. I shall go for that. Oh, thank you there, Henker. You are saying that you are enjoying the analysis, and Kramnik student is also saying that he believes that analyzing the game as much as possible, it's okay. Let me know about your opinion, because I'm sure that not everybody agrees. Maybe you are keen on playing and you are challenging, clicking on the challenge button, and you don't understand why I'm analyzing so much. Let's mix things up. Premium members, 5-minute blitz. I'm hoping to click on someone's name that I haven't played against yet. Some of the usernames are very familiar, so I try to skip them for the moment. Of course, you can repeat in the future, but I still need to give a chance to other players to actually have a go and try to beat me. Why I'm playing with the black pieces today in every game, chess 24? Anyway, today is the day of the French defense. Yeah. Today is the day. Sopico, help me. I wonder which variation. Knight c3. Maybe PKSWPIA. Can I call you just Pia short? Maybe you have seen my game from last week where I ended up playing a very, very bad position as the black side of these variations. Okay, bishop g5, this is a different variation. You can play the Macachon, that's bishop b4, or bishop e7, that's the other, maybe more the main line. More players play bishop e7, but bishop b4 is also very interesting. h4, this is a variation where white sacrifices a pawn, so I could take here, but I don't want to. I prefer to have equal material on the board, but less attack. I don't want to be on the defensive side that much, so I will not take the pawn. I will show you in the analysis that position too a bit, but I do prefer this variation. I think it's safer. I like safe positions, you know that. So I want to play c5. Normally black castles kingside, and white can try to castle queenside, of course. You see all these pawn pushes are really, ooh, g4, he's really going for my king. Pia, you are a very aggressive player. Now, you shall, first of all, not panic. That's the first step. I will talk about how to play on the defensive side in a huge something surprise course that I have developed for improving your chess. It's not officially announced yet, so I shouldn't say the name and I shouldn't say what is it about, but it includes these situations where you are on the defensive side and what you need to do, first of all, psychologically, and then chess-wise, because it is important that you know how to react to these situations. These are the most unpleasant in chess, I believe, when your king is under attack. And therefore, you need to know how to deal with that. Alright, since he's attacking on the king side, I should do something quick, very quick, in the center or on the queen side. Now more in the center because his king is on e1. I can play f6 or queen b4. Both are tempting. Which one would you play? I'm more inclined to play f6. Because I want to open the f5 for my rook and make this pawn a weak pawn. So you see that white was expanding on the king side, going for a pawn storm. But you can't really do that until you are undeveloped. I'm aiming to punish my opponent for going for an attack that I think is premature. I think he should have developed first and then start pushing those pawns. I believe that now it's a good position for me. Both the knight is hanging and the pawn on f4. If he has to take on c6, I'm very happy to take back with the b pawn. That pawn will support my central central pawns. Central pawns, what was that pronunciation? Okay, if he doesn't take, then I think it's just it's looking very weird because many moves losing tempo. But I need to exploit it. So first of all, I still need to do something about my development too. I wish I could play e5, but this pawn would be hanging. So probably what I will do is to protect the d5 pawn first. I want to play knight c5 or knight e4 or knight b6. And I would like to push e5. Maybe I could have... No, it's better this way. I'm just thinking that I want to give up this pawn actually, because you don't really care about losing a pawn when the opponent's king is still in the middle of the board. So it's okay to give up a pawn in order to open the position. I want to push e5, and you see that white will not be able to take on e5 because I have queen f2 check in the end. e5, he will take on d5, and then it's queen takes d5 check and castle. So that is what I should prevent. I want to push e5 in a way that the king will still be stuck on e1 and not have the opportunity to castle queenside. e5 takes, queen takes, bishop e6, attacking the queen, and then he doesn't have time to castle. But of course it is white to move, so that is just in case, I don't know, what shall white do for that? Queen d2. In that case I can play that. b3, oh no, please, I don't believe in moves like this. This is too much. You are pushing pawns while your king is still in the middle of the board. This cannot be good. I'm telling you, this cannot be good. I will go for e5 and I give you this pawn. I don't worry about losing this pawn. Your king is stuck in the middle of the board. You are undeveloped. I'm opening the position so that I can punish you for your undevelopment. I'm gonna take this, play bishop e6. All my pieces are developed and you should be in trouble. Next move, I will take on f4, not because of winning the pawn, but more because of opening the long diagonal, attacking the rook on a1, so that you cannot really castle queenside. That is the only thing that I should be afraid of, that you would castle queenside. And actually another move, now that I think, is rook d8, also prevents castle queenside and threatens bishop d5. Which one do you like more? E takes f4 or rook d8, threatening bishop d5. And of course this pawn is hanging too, but I don't care much about that pawn. I just want to prevent castle queenside because the king should be in the middle of the board forever. So which one shall I play? What do you think? I think I will take here first. Oh, wait a second. No, don't wait. I'll take anyway. The other option was also very good. Rook d8, threatening bishop d5. I think both were nice. And now I want to bring my rook to the e file. I'm just thinking if he will later go for queen g6. I should play faster. I'm giving up this pawn, but I don't care as long as I have this nice attack going on the e file. Okay, queen g6, but in itself, I don't think that will do much. Where shall I place my queen? Here? I think that looks good. I could have taken and played f3. Probably that was winning material on the spot. But in general, you don't want to trade queens when the opponent's king is in the middle of the board. So, you see, you want your queen because you want to give mate. Okay, f3 should be the best because you will win a piece and the attack is still going on. So this should be game over. And that's why I kept the queen. Even though queen takes g6 was for sure winning 2 material. I think that's it. Thank you for the game. PKSWPIA. You should let me know in the chat how to pronounce your name and what does it mean. And I see that you're from Poland. I know a sentence in Polish. Polak węgier dwa bratanki, ido szabli, ido szklanki. Something like this. It's about the Polish-Hungarian friendship, if I'm correct. So, let's go through the game, because you guys said in the chat that you actually like the analysis. So let's go deep within this game. Let's go expert mode. French defense, one of the main variations, knight c3. After knight c3, the two options are knight f6, the two main options, and bishop b4. Both are, of course, very good. Depends on your style, which one you prefer. I do prefer keeping this bishop nowadays, so that's why I play knight f6. I mean, I will have to exchange it after bishop g5, but I do trade it for the other bishop and not for this knight. So that means that I'm not giving you the pair of bishops. Bishop b4 is the Makaton I was saying. Bishop e7 is the main line. e5, knight fd7. Here white can either take. If you don't want to sacrifice a pawn, you can take. This is the main line. h4 is a very interesting option. And I think that if you love attacking, then you shall analyze this variation, because it can be very dangerous if black accepts the pawn sacrifice. So for the moment, if you have never seen this as black, maybe you just think that your opponent has gone crazy. He sacrificed the pawn for nothing because the queen looks nice on g5, but actually it's not that nice. This position is very complicated. It has been analyzed by grandmasters, played between grandmasters. But I do believe that white has enough compensation for the pawn. So this is a mess. This is a complicated position where if you enjoy attacking, then go for this variation, because you have a pawn down, but you already have opened the h5 for your rook, and you will just develop your pieces with tempo. The queen will have to go back. You play bishop d3 and so on and so on. I'm not even sure how this line is move by move, but in general, I never enter it because I don't want to be a pawn up and being very passive. I prefer to play h6, which is the other option against h4. I force my opponent to take on e7, and now, yes, this h4 move can be useful for white, but h6 is not bad either. So, depends. f4, castle, and knight f3. Until this point, everything is all right. And after c5, you need to develop very quickly. So as white, you should finish development as well. I have castled already. My next move can be f6. I can start opening the position because I have castled. You should really aim to castle very quickly too. So either like queen d2 or move the bishop, and you want to castle queenside because you are attacking on the king side, you are pushing these pawns, g4, h5, g5. That is all very nice, but you cannot do that with your king in the middle of the board, because I'm gonna go for your king first. So you should castle queenside and then keep pushing those pawns. Now, of course, this is not that easy. It's not a winning position for white. It's just a complicated position. I'm gonna play knight c6 and I can attack on the queen side. If you don't take on c5, I will push c4 and not in this position, but imagine that, okay, I'm gonna make some moves so that you can see. We can reach a position like this, where if white castles queenside without taking on c5, I can push c4 and next move b5, even as a pawn sacrifice, because look at this. This is the opposite side castling position that I was mentioning, that here you want to go for the pawn storms. The person that's faster will win the game. You don't care about sacrificing a pawn because it's opening fires for you, for your rook, and so on and so on. So this is actually a very exciting position, but a different story. And this is how you should play this variation. You should actually first castle and then push g4. I know it's tempting. It looks very tempting to go for my throat right away. I know you wanted to I understand that you wanted to beat me, but this is not the way. You should develop first and then attack me. Knight c6 is a logical developing move, and after h5, I think here black is already better, because after f6, the whole center explodes, fires are opening up, everything will be in the air in terms of white's structure. The f4 pawn, the d4 knight, there's no base for that knight anymore. The other option that I was thinking of is queen b4, which is also very tempting because both the knight and the pawn on b2 are hanging. But I still prefer f6, because what if in the future I will take on b2 And that's just a pawn. I prefer to attack your king and have equal material, you know that. Or even be a pawn down, but attack your king in the middle of the board. Not that I'm a very aggressive player, but when the opponent's king is in the middle of the board, you have to attack it, no matter what. You love positional chess, you love endgames, I don't care. Your opponent's king is in the middle of the board, you have to attack it. That's the only way to exploit this weakness. After queen takes, white is in trouble. If he takes, I was mentioning that I'm strengthening my central, something like this I said, to quote myself. The pawn is hanging, next move will be e5. This is just a beautiful position for black. I think black is almost winning, if not winning. So this is looking just bad from here on. And knight e2 is looking bad too, because you are losing time. But I don't think that white had any good options in this position already. I think this is already probably a close to be winning position for black. And I don't mean it as an exaggeration. I don't have any engine on, but it feels like black is already having a very good advantage. I can't play e5 immediately because of knight takes d5, so I played knight b6, and I want to sacrifice this pawn in order to open the position. And that's what happened. b3 I think is the last mistake. You shouldn't do that. Your king is in the middle of the war. You have to be badly trying to get rid of the king from the e5, just castle somehow. Queen d2, but then knight c4. I understand you now. You were afraid of this. Okay, that's a good point. What about queen d3? And if I play e5, well, I don't like white's position at all, but instead of taking here and giving me the same kind of play that I had in the game, maybe just you try to sacrifice the g4 and f4 pawn. One of them I will take, then you can take on d5. At least you castled, so you don't get mated. I think it's better to be a pawn down and have a safe king than what happened in the game. b3 is for sure not the way because of e5. Everything is in the air. You take this guy, but it doesn't really matter. All my pieces are developed and you have this king on e1. Queen e4. I was saying that here I have two very attractive moves. E takes f4 is the game. My other option was rook a d8. I'm threatening bishop d5. So, and also important, I don't let you castle. That's illegal. These are the two main options because I don't want you to castle. Bishop takes g4 for me is not a main option because this allows castling. So I don't care about taking this pawn. This is nothing for me in this position where I'm aiming to attack the king. You need to make sure that that king stays on e1. Don't go hunting pawns. Keep that king in the middle of the board either by cutting it or by playing e takes f4. And if he castles now, okay, good, you castled, but I will chase you away from c1. Check and then rook d8 and black should be completely winning. Yes, it's winning on the spot. Let's just show it. This is game over. So that's why I took on e4, not because of the pawn, and at the same time it opens the e file for my rook. After rook d1, rook e8. As I was saying, I don't care about this pawn much because I just want to open files, but maybe still, no, I don't think so. It's just that you can't take this pawn. You take with the queen, let's say. I'll take this. And now I have a discovered check, either from here or from here. If from bishop takes g4, you still have knight e2. That's why bishop d5 check, and next move I'm gonna take the rook, so this is lost. White cannot take the pawn, and if you take with the knight, it's even worse. I don't think I need to show the move because you see it coming, right? Look at this e file. This is why you should castle first. I think this is just winning for black. It's not really the matter of what white does here. If bishop g2, bishop takes g4, and I'm gonna take on e2. Queen c4 check. I don't really believe that anything can save white here. You will lose material for sure. And the king has nowhere to go. You can't castle kingside either. It's just bad. So this is the last position, and the way it ended was queen g6. I was saying that this is probably just winning too because of some tactics, or maybe not immediately. But I don't want to exchange queens. So even if that was winning material, I prefer to keep the queens on the board since I'm targeting the king. And here f3 is a huge threat. I don't know what you can do against it, probably nothing. If bishop g2, I'm sure that there are many ways of winning here. One of them should be bishop f5, which is a beautiful move. Attacking the queen, you take it, and it's mate. And bishop f5 is better than bishop f7, because if bishop f7, white can still defend the e2 knight. This is winning. I think this position is just lost. Doesn't matter what white does after king f2, check, and f3. I'm winning a piece and the attack is going on still. I mean, it's not just a piece, it's everything. It's the whole position collapsing. Another piece about to promote. The king is still weak. This is game over. Thank you for the game, PKSWPIA. Let me check in the chat if you have told me how to pronounce your name, and I will go for another challenge. Thank you, Gialibun, for saying quantity over quality, not quantity, quality over quantity. Thanks once again, everybody who are saying that. Mike Kalinin, thank you for praising the analysis. I'm glad that you guys find it instructive. I realized that during the game I can't express all my thoughts because some of them are just maybe way too complicated the way I'm saying it, and you need to imagine many moves, and it's much easier if after the game I show you what I meant. So I'm aiming to do that more. If you like it, just let me know in the chat, let me know in the comments on YouTube. Let's go for another challenge. So yes, like this we have less games, more analysis. Pros and cons. They both have pros and cons, that is for sure. Who else I haven't played yet? Let's see. Drew Schoenberger. Nice to meet you, Drew. And I'm playing with the white pieces for the first time today. Thank you, Just24. E4. I'm an E4 player. You know that. But sometimes I play D4 or knight f3. Depends. Usually E4. The Sicilian. Will you play the Najdorf? Of course you will. I think that everybody has watched Sopiko's video series on the Najdorf. And that is just a pity for me, because it means that you all know how to play the Najdorf very well. She's a great teacher. If you haven't watched the video series, you should. Another plug, but this is true, a dragon once again! Oh, last week I had 2 games against the dragon variation, and today once again. Wow. I played both main lines last week. Which one shall I play today? Which one would you play today? Okay, bishop e3. This is still, both variations are possible. So, I like to play both main variations, which is queen d2 castle without bishop c4, or with bishop c4, also castle queenside. There are other options too, g3, bishop g2, castle kingside, but I think that's just very solid. Against the dragon, I think you should be aggressive, even if you're not an aggressive player. I'm not an aggressive player, but I do play aggressive variations against the dragon, and I speak a lot. Which variation? Which variation shall we go for? Okay, let's go once again for the one without bishop c4, because I feel like that. So, the point of this is that you go queen d2, castle, black will castle, and push d5. Oh, he's not doing that. Now, this is interesting. What does he want? Castle and d5 is the normal option, so I will just castle, as usual. I don't think that bishop d7... I mean, for sure it exists. It should be a sideline. But d5 is the critical choice. So with the bishop on c8, pushing d5 in that position, that is the critical position in this variation. How can I refute this? That is the question. Well, one way of refuting is usually to go for a pawn storm. I want to push g4, h5. Rook c8. Normally it's a good idea to step out of the c file. It's a semi-open file. After you castle queenside, it doesn't matter what variation. Your king is safer on b1 than on c1, because you defend all pawns like this. Knight a5 can be a bad move because of a trick. You can take on c6. Actually, it doesn't work. It doesn't work, unfortunately. I wanted to win a pawn. Knight takes, you take back, knight d5. Queen is hanging, so if you take, knight takes e7 check. The problem is, knight takes, b takes, knight d5, and the queen will go back to d8, protect this pawn, and my knight is hanging on d5. I will go for it anyway so that I can show it to you. This is for sure not the best move because it's not winning. In other variations it could be winning, not here. Knight d5, so the queen is hanging, and if queen takes d2, I have an intermediate move. Knight takes e7 check, and then I will take... Oh, he's going for it, but like this I will be a pawn up. I think he missed this intermediate move. This is a typical trick in the Sicilian. After the game, we will analyze this position. What should have black played in that position? I will take with the rook, protect this guy, just in case. And next move, I just need to get my knight out of e7. So the only situation where this would be a bad idea for you is if the rook was not on f8. Because then you don't have knight e7 intermediate check, the king would go to f8 after the check and take your knight when you take back the queen. I will show that to you also. So I can take on d6 and be 2 pawns up, and I think I'm a greedy person and I will go for that. Shall I go for that? I shall go for that. I could have taken on c6 too first and then take on d6. Maybe that was more precise. Because this knight is still on e7. Anyway, I think I like my position. I like to be 2 pawns up. What about you? Now this should be, of course, winning for white, but I have spoken so much that I only have 2 minutes left. That compensates for sure. I'm gonna take this guy. I could take on c6, but I'm greedy, but not that greedy. So I will develop my pieces first, threaten this pawn. There's a pin on the e5, so some move like knight d5 is an option, but that's not the end of the world. And I just want to double rooks. Let's see what he does about the f7 pawn. Normal, I'm gonna double, and then I will take it. If he doesn't defend the pawn, h5. Now I'm gonna take for sure. So after developing your pieces, you can go and grab pawns, but not the other way around. I don't recommend that you just start taking pawns and not develop. I think it's just bad because of the pin. You will lose more material. You are losing now. This guy. This is bad. Bad. Yeah, now this is too much material. I'm sorry, but it's too much. Thank you for the game. Thank you for the game, Drew Schoenberger. I think it was very interesting at the beginning. I don't know why, but you guys like the dragon. You like to play the dragon against me. Last week I had a very lame joke about it. I will not repeat it. But yeah, maybe that is the reason. No, that cannot be the reason. So I was saying that there are 2 variations that are considered the main variations. One is to play with bishop c4 and the other is to play without bishop c4. In both variations you will place your queen on d2, castle, bishop c4. You can start with bishop c4 and then queen d2. And so this is one position. And I think that my opponent, Drew, correct me if I'm wrong, but maybe you mixed the 2 variations. So if white plays with bishop c4, black will play bishop d7 and rook c8. This is the starting position of the main line. But if I play without bishop c4, this variation, this is what I was playing. I was not going to play bishop c4. I was aiming for this position. The refutation, the drawback of not playing bishop c4 is that I'm allowing d5. And this is a long theoretical line that starts like this. I take on d5 and then I take on c6, and then who has what? Bishop d4, I want to trade this bishop. After e5, bishop c5. You can even sacrifice the exchange, and we had a very exciting game in this position, this exact position last week. If you want to check that, that was fun. So this is an exciting and complicated variation, and there's another way of handling it too. You can take on d4 and so on and so on. This is the main line. If you don't play d5, then I kinda save the tempo for myself because I didn't have to play bishop c4. And you just play the normal variation, bishop d7, castle, castle. So we reach this position without my bishop on c4. That means that I'm ahead in time with my attack. I didn't have to prevent your d5 move, and I'm pushing my pawns already. After rook c8, king b1. As I was saying, this is always useful to have your king here. You are protecting all these guys because it's almost always necessary. Almost always there will be a possibility of your opponent attacking on a2 or a7. And you don't want that pawn to be hanging. With the king on c1, for instance, imagine that the knight moves away and an exchange sacrifice on c3. That's typical too. Now, with the king on c1, that is very tempting and probably very good. With the king on b1, it's not that clear cut that it's a good sacrifice because I will take back with the queen and I'm not losing the pawn on a2. So it's important that you always move out. And another pro for this move, king b1, is that once I move this knight away, queen takes d2 is not a check. So if you want to play for this knight d5 trick that I played in the game, you shall, after queen a5 or before, place your king on b1. This is the first criterion, because this shouldn't be a check. Then you need to eliminate this knight so that it doesn't defend the queen. You see that the queen is defended on a5. You need to take this knight first, and doesn't matter if it's b takes or bishop takes or rook takes. In all these variations, I was going to play knight d5. You see that the knight cannot be taken because the queen is hanging. And since queen takes d2 is not a check, you have an intermediate move, knight takes e7, and you are winning a pawn. But in this variation, look at this. King h8, I take back, and now it's not a bishop on c6, but a pawn. So my knight is not coming out. In this variation, it wouldn't have worked. This is a way that it does not make sense to play for knight d5. Actually, I missed to see this during the game. I hope that I would have seen it after b takes and not bishop takes, but I didn't realize during the game that this was also a good option for black. I cannot save the knight, can I? Okay, actually, no, I can't. Well, yeah, there's a way. e5. So if you take on e7, I will take on f6. And luckily for me, this, even though it's threatening back rank mate, this is a check. But maybe this is just nothing after bishop takes f6. This bishop is hanging and I'm not developed. So probably this is just fine for black. And after e5, the other option, of course, is d takes e5. This knight is still on e7. I don't really think that that was a very good choice for me. Bishop c5, I can protect it, and then I can try to give up two minor pieces for a rook and a pawn. Still doesn't feel so nice for white. So after b takes c6, I don't think that knight d5 works. And the other reason why it shouldn't work is the simple queen d8. You just go back with the queen, protect this pawn, and I have to just trade knights. I have opened the b5 for you, and the bishop is already attacking the b2 pawn, so rook b8, next move and such. I don't think that this is such a good trade for me, unless I can exchange your bishop, which is in the dragon. When you're playing against the dragon, you want to eliminate this bishop. This is the venom in the dragon. That's poison, this bishop. You need to eliminate it. If we trade these pieces, then of course white has a nice position. Next move, h5. So the bishop on g7, this fianchetto bishop in the dragon, is a key piece. It's protecting the king, and at the same time it's attacking the opponent's king. Therefore, trading it is what white should aim for. So all in all, with the queen on a5, this variation, I was telling you that it shouldn't work for white, but I still wanted to show it to you in the game, and I went for it. But after b takes c6, knight d5, I think it doesn't work because of what I showed you. I take here, I have to take the queen, and then the knight is almost trapped on e7. So you should have taken with the pawn on c6, not only because of this trap, but also because I think it's nicer for the attack. Sometimes I think for club players it's difficult when you have already developed the rook to the c file and then you think that you are wasting time going to b8. But don't think about this as a loss of time that much. Of course it is a loss of a tempo. You wish you haven't played rook c8, but you played rook b8 immediately, and then you take with the b pawn and you are a genius. I wouldn't have opened the b file if your rook was on b8. But also, just realize that you have gained a lot by placing the b7 pawn on c6. So it is worth a tempo. It doesn't matter that you are going to lose a tempo by placing the rook on b8, because b takes c6 is a move that's helping you. b file, c5 you can push. So you gain also, not just lose a tempo. And what you have gained is actually, I think, a very nice position for black. So knight takes c6 as white is not the best move, and I was aware of that, but I wanted to show you this trick. After bishop takes c6, knight d5 works. As we were mentioning, queen takes d2 is not a check, and here, yes, you can go knight e7, and both the rook and the bishop are hanging, so this knight will never be trapped. Doesn't matter where the rook goes, I will take here if necessary, and then I can take on d6, 2 pawns up, this position is winning. So after bishop takes c6, knight d5, the only way not to lose a pawn was to go back with the queen. And then, yes, you lost the tempo, but at least you are not losing a pawn. Probably I would have played either bishop d4 or takes first and then bishop d4. As I said, I want to swap these pieces, push h5 and give mate. Without the bishop on g7, actually white has very good attacking chances, very good mating chances. So that was the whole thing, this knight d5 trick. Another thing that I was telling you, imagine this position. How shall I do that? Let's skip the turn of white, alright? Any move. I just want to skip this turn. Imagine that the rook is not on f8. And then you want to go for this trick. Yes, the king is on b1. Yes, this is not a check, but this is not working. When the rook is not on f8, it never works, because knight takes e7, the king will go to f8 and you just lose a piece. Because of being too smart, too tricky. Doesn't work. It only works with the rook on f8. So remember that. If you want to play for this trick, has to be with the king on b1, rook on f8, and you need to make sure that your knight will not get trapped on e7. So you should calculate that. This has been all for today. Unfortunately, I couldn't play more games today, but I hope that you enjoyed the analysis and I hope that you found it instructive. I hope that you learned something today. Let me just once again remind you that the World Cup is going on. If you haven't yet realized, I'm sure that you realized, and you shall let me know in the chat and in the YouTube comments, who are you rooting for? How do you enjoy the coverage of the event? There are so many languages covered, so many commentators, and also make sure that you do not miss to watch Sopika's shows on the World Cup. She is in Tbilisi. She is in her hometown with her family. So who else could do a better report on the World Cup than my lovely Miss Tactics, who is on site supporting Anish and also reporting for you on the event every 3 days. So every 3 days you have a highlights show with Sopiko, and she doesn't only tell you the results, but she also brings you the most instructive positions. You can learn a lot from that show because it highlights all the critical tactical positions that you will enjoy watching. Attacking chess as usual by Miss Tactics. Definitely make sure that you tune into that. I will see you next Thursday, the same time here on Chess24, and in the meantime, follow me on my social media because I have so many things going on in my life. If you want to know more about my surprise and also secret course that will improve your chess, make sure that you follow me on Facebook or Twitter or Instagram. It will be announced very shortly in the next weeks. This month it's going to be announced and I'm so excited about it. Let me know if you're also excited about my method, the way I will help you improve your chess. I will see you next Thursday. Have a lovely weekend, week, day, afternoon, evening, and enjoy the World Cup as usual. I will see you next week.